Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to my Week 10 rundown. Um, let's look at how events transpired this past week. Um, some good games this week. None were really too competitive, but some interesting results. In the first matchup that I'm going to talk about, I played Mason, and in kind of a replay of how things ended up in Week 1, Mason beat me. This time it was a little more competitive. My team has actually been showing up in recent weeks for my standards, which is a nice surprise. But Mason still gets the best of me, 100 to 94. It kind of came down to the Monday night game. I needed Greg Jennings to outscore Mason Crosby by 7 points, and Jennings proceeded to score on the first drive of the game, and then really did nothing after that. So as the Packers piled up points against the Vikings, Crosby just slowly chipped away, and Mason ended up with a 6-point cushion there. Walter beat David 102 to 82. Not really a surprise there. I think everybody kind of expected Walter to take that one. Walt was down going into the Monday night game, though, but with Rodgers and Peterson, you would have kind of assumed that he would come back from the 30-point deficit or whatever he had. And that was most certainly the case, as Rodgers had another huge night, and AP was workmanlike as well. In Wayne versus Jeremy, I'd like to say that I predicted this. Wayne takes care of Jeremy pretty handily, 96 to 60. I think going into the week we would have considered a Wayne victory an upset, and I'd like to say that I personally called it. But really not close at all when you look at the score. Wayne's consistently inconsistent, and kind of rode a big performance by Michael Bush, and then some good special teams play from his defense and his kicker, to a convincing victory over Jeremy, who just a down week for him. Really no scoring from his players. Then Al completely destroyed Brad, 156 to 75, more than doubling Brad's points. That's a big showing from Al. He'd kind of been low scoring the last couple weeks. I think he'd lost 2 of 3 or something like that, or maybe 1, 2 of 3. But anyways, he wasn't performing exactly like the 6-3 team that he was, probably playoff bound, and he really wasn't putting up the point totals you'd expect. And then out of nowhere this week, he throws down 156. Big showing, and he certainly got revenge on Brad from the upset that Brad pulled on him earlier in the season. So big win there for Al. Keeps him on the playoff track. And then in our matchup of the week, this was the most lopsided game that I really could have imagined. Chad beats Cody 126 to 52. I feel like in weeks past I've been kind of on point with predicting which matchup is going to be the best one of the week, the most competitive. But I was far off the mark here. Cody went in at 5-4, Chad went in at 6-3. Both teams still have really legitimate shots at the playoffs. I figure, hey, it's going to be close. And then Cody just does not show up at all. If it hadn't been for Goskowski on Sunday night, he would have been down at in the 30s, high 30s, low 40s. That's just not going to cut it. And we're getting down to crunch time here. We just finished Week 10. We're heading into Week 11. With those double-digit weeks, if you want to make the playoffs, that's when you got to start performing. And Cody went in completely the wrong direction here. So, what can you say, really? For that performance, I gave Cody the Snowman of the Week. Very deserved, I believe. And then I gave Al a Crucial Beast. I think Walter's 175-point performance earlier this year kind of skewed our perception of what is considered a high score. But, I mean, let's be real, 156, that's a lot of fantasy points. And it came at a big time for Al, like I mentioned. He hadn't been, he'd been getting the W's, but more because the teams he played weren't scoring a lot than by his own doing. And so I think we were kind of starting to consider Chad the team to watch out for in Goliath. And Al reminded us, hey, I'm still here too. And at 7-3, he's got every shot in the world to make the playoffs. So a big performance there from Al. Well played, buddy. And you very much deserve a Crucial Beast this week, I feel. No Nostradamus. I think I predicted every matchup right, but I just got the Snowman wrong. I would have never foreseen Cody throwing down such an ugly performance. So what can you do there? let's see. Um, just a quick note, as I'm sure you're aware, Thursday night games are starting now, so make sure you get your lineups in on time. Make sure if you want your predictions to count toward the Nostradamus, you got to get them in before Thursday night. So, quick word of warning there. Also, the trade deadline is in a week. That kind of caught me off guard. I kind of forgot when our trade deadline was, but next week, um, Wednesday, the 23rd at midnight. All trading in the Screaming Howards will be over for the season. So keep that in mind. I know we'll probably see a barrage of trade proposals in this next week. I certainly plan to get in on that. And so remember, if you want to move players on your team, move players on other people's teams, you gotta get the trade finished and upheld by November the 23rd. Okay. Last thing I want to talk about before I get into next week's predictions is our commissioner forum is now open. So if you plan to run this year or you're thinking about it, you've got 2 weeks to get your to declare your candidacy. So I posted a league message to that effect. You can use that as your forum to let everyone know that you plan to run this year. And then in 2 weeks, on Wednesday morning, at the end of the waiver period of week 12, I believe that's the 30th of November, that forum will close. So last year we didn't have anybody run against me, which, I mean, that's fine with me, I guess, if you guys want me to keep being commissioner, but I certainly would like to see other people step up and, at least show interest in running the league. I remember when Mason and I ran against each other, I thought that was a good time, even though I got beaten soundly. I don't know, the debates and the just the campaigning and the election itself. I thought it was a good time. So I really encourage you to think about that. And remember, you have 2 weeks to declare your candidacy. After that, there will be a period of campaigning before the election in week 15, first week of the playoffs. I think that about sums up everything I wanted to talk about. Let's look at the games coming up this week. I'm playing Al. Al just got off a 156-point performance, and I am me. So I think it's pretty safe to say that Al should take this one. Even though right now we're projected for an even score line, but I don't see that. I don't see that happening. So I'd say Al takes that one. Walter versus Cody. Walter is 8-2. Best record in the league and certainly an elite team, and he gets Cody off of one of the biggest stinkers I've seen in a while, so just based on momentum's sake, I'd say Walter wins that matchup. Chad versus Jeremy. Chad is really hot lately. I've said this, but ever since his trade with Wayne, he's been on a hot streak, and Jeremy got beaten soundly by Wayne. Wayne's definitely dwelling in the cellar these days, so to have that result, not good for Jeremy's confidence. He's almost out of the playoff race at this point. Not mathematically, but at 4-6 is not looking good. And Chad needs a win to keep pressing on toward the postseason. So I think Chad takes that. Mason versus David. I know I'm predicting all favorites this week, but I just don't see David beating Mason. Mason's without Breeze and Graham, so that's a dynamic combo. I think he's without Mendenhall as well, but I don't know. I saw he has Carson Palmer on his bench, and I think Palmer will put up good numbers against the Vikings. And I just don't see David being able to stand up against Mason's consistency. So Mason wins that. Finally, in our cellar dweller matchup of the week, we got Brad and Wayne, both at 3-7. Really, who can you pick here? I'm gonna go with Brad. He finally got a big performance from Chris Johnson last week. I know he'd been waiting all season for that. So maybe that'll give Brad's team a little bit of momentum, and I think that might be just about what he needs to push past Wayne. Those are my predictions for this coming week. I'm about to post them on the message board, and I hope that you will do the same before tomorrow night's game, which is Jets-Broncos, I believe. I don't know how many of you have NFL Network, but that should be a good one to catch if you can. Alright guys, it was good talking to you. I hope that you'll consider running for the commissionership. As I said, the forum is open, and I look forward to talking to you guys next week. Alright.